Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Razan Pereira. The government of Kerala has put on hold the implementation of the Kerala Police Act amendment after facing massive backlash over the same. Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan on Monday said that due to concerns raised by the supporters of the Left Democratic Front, the law will not be amended. The Kerala government had decided to amend the Kerala Police Act in an effort to check the widespread malicious campaigns through social media and otherwise which pose a threat to individual freedom and dignity which are constitutionally ensured to citizens. Criticisms and complaints against defamatory, untrue and obscene campaigns have come up from various quarters of the society. Strong protests have emerged from the society on account of the merciless attacks on various sections, including women and transgenders. There have been instances in which even the integrity of families have been affected, resulting in suicides. The need for legally tackling this was raised even by the heads of media houses. It was in these circumstances that an amendment to the Kerala Police Act was envisaged. The amendment evoked varied responses from several corners. In this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the Kerala Police Act amendment and free speech. Joining me on the program today are J. Sai Deepak, Advocate of the Supreme Court, Ranjit Marar, also Advocate of the Supreme Court, and Satya Prakash, Legal Editor, The Tribune. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ranjit Marar, let me start the program with you first. Let's first analyze and put into perspective what the Kerala Police Act is and what was the proposed amendment.
Kerala Police Act is an act which governs the activities of the police. It says so many things, including certain offences, which the police necessarily thought should be there so that there can be law and order in existence in the state of Kerala. The police comes under the state list, and therefore, so far as legislative competency is concerned, they have the power. And this section 118 has a history. Section 118 of the Kerala Police Act, 118D, was under challenge at a point of time when Section 66A of the Information Technology Act was also challenged before the Supreme Court. And when 66A was wiped off, being unconstitutional, 118D also got the benefit and it was also struck down as unconstitutional. Though there is no discussion so far as 118D is concerned, it got the benefit of all the discussions which was there for Section 66A, and therefore this went away. I have difference of opinion, though I had appeared for the petitioner therein. I always had a difference of opinion. I thought Section 118D, which was in existence at that point of time, was much better drafted compared to Section 66A, which had all the vagueness, or rather it was all cryptic so far as the statute is concerned. So far as Section 118A is concerned, Kerala had seen a number of developments during the last pandemic time. Apart from certain crimes mopping out, like the YouTuber being manhandled by the victims, some feminist groups, victims, this demand was always there, that people were being affected by the malicious dissemination of these kind of whatever you may call it, but this was affecting the members of the society who never wanted to get into this big fight in the social media. Therefore, demand was always there. And now the act has come in. Kerala Police Act, I have to tell you this, Kerala Police Act has so many provisions, including Section 120, which also deals with these kind of offences, like maliciously blaming somebody or giving false information, etc., causing annoyance to people by virtue of emails, social media, etc. But unfortunately, just prior to the pandemic, they brought in an amendment making all these offences compoundable. And the offences have been made compoundable without the victim's assent. They do not have to. The police can compound the offence. The session officer can compound the offence without the assurance, or rather the acceptance from the victim. Therefore, that is how the section operates, or the law operates in Kerala. But this was subsequent to the demand of certain groups, including the government is also Kerala. The government is also facing a huge, or rather dislike from the community, and there are numerous online magazines, online YouTube platforms, etc., which is attacking the government these days. Probably the government would have thought that there needs to be a kind of a restriction on these kind of online media, which does not have any other checks
Right.
so far as the reputation or responsibility is concerned. Therefore, probably this is the reason. Once
Okay.
you go through, there has been now uproar against 180A, but once you go through the provision, one would find that 180A is not as malicious or as poisonous as Section 66A, which was in existence at that point of time
Sure.
in the Technology Act. This
Okay.
is kind of provision like the defamation under the Indian Penal Code. You cannot have Subramanian Swamy's case that the Supreme Court itself held. Section 499, 500 is not unconstitutional. This is required, but then how you are going to operate this is the whole question. Whether you are going to misuse this or whether you are going to act in accordance with the words, which according to me is not very confusing.
Okay.
Therefore,
Points taken.
then there would not be much of a problem, as is being said in the social media today.
Okay, points taken. Jay Sai Deepak, let me bring you into the picture now. Like Ranjit Marar was mentioning in his opening remarks, this is not something new. There is a history to this. It's not the first time that something like this has come up really as far as the Kerala Police Act is concerned. What was the necessity this time around and how do you look at it?
The stated necessity seems to be that the government was interested, according to them, in protecting women and transgenders. Perhaps a few incidents may have triggered this particular necessity, or maybe they felt that there was a constituency to be catered to. Be that as it may, the very judgment that the state government has actually relied upon as the judgment which has triggered this particular amendment clearly, in fact, said in that very judgment itself, the Kerala High Court said that existing laws which deal with defamation and other allied or cognate offences are sufficient to address these kind of issues. Therefore, there is no need for a separate legislation, so to speak, that addresses questions of, let's say, defamation or violation of the modesty of women, or let's say statements, outrageous statements against women. Okay, so that's one thing that perhaps we may want to ask ourselves as to what is it that specifically triggered it. Perhaps the one justification could be that while the law recognizes, let's say, the vulnerability or the need for protection of women separately when it comes to dignity, so on and so forth, maybe in light of the kind of behavior sometimes that transgenders and non-binary genders are exposed to, maybe they need to be protected separately. That's one thing that we may have to debate. So that's one. On the question of, let's say, whether this is as bad as Section 66A or not, I agree completely with Mr. Marar that this is not as pernicious as Section 66A. However, the spirit with which the Supreme Court struck down Section 66A and 118B in the Shreya Singhal judgment was basically that if a provision suffers from vagueness and it is unclear as to what is the definition that you impute to terms which are used in a penal provision, then that perhaps warrants at the very least either reading down of the particular provision and stretched to the maximum, it can be struck down. In the provision that has been introduced, 118A, which is the subject of discussion here, certain terms have been used whose context and whose definition, or let's say whose meaning, is unclear according to my very limited knowledge of criminal law. Because here it says that any kind of communication which is threatening, abusing, humiliating, or defaming, and that causes injury to the mind, reputation, or property. So some of these terms, in fact, frankly speaking, do not have a current definition. So for instance, if there is already a word such as defaming that is used, which falls back on the jurisprudence of defamation, what is the meaning of humiliation that is different from defamation? That's one. Second, there is another word called abusing. Now, I don't understand what is this supposed to mean? What kind of language are we policing here? What amounts to abuse? Second, when they say causes injury to the mind, which means so long as you take offense or you perceive a certain offense based on the use of language by a certain person, does this mean that the provision itself is triggered? In which case, it brings this particular provision almost at par with the kind of vague language used in 118D, which was struck down by the Supreme Court in Shreya Singhal, even if it is not close to 66A. In fact, I'll go a step further and say, one of the terms that was used in section 66A was that a certain message is deemed offensive. Now, what is offensive is also something that causes injury to the mind of a certain person, could be the argument. If you make that particular argument, it is possible to contend that 118A is perhaps old wine in new bottle and 66A being presented in a different fashion. That could be the argument that is made. So, one, what is it about existing laws that are insufficient and inadequate, warranting the need for this law? Second, if it is meant to, let's say, specifically protect transgenders, what is the need for such a broad provision? If it is meant to protect women, what is it about existing laws which are again inadequate? Four, how do you overcome the findings of, let's say, vagueness and overbreadth, which the Supreme Court has come out in Shreya Singhal, when the language that is used in 118A falls within the exact prescriptions of the Supreme Court in Shreya Singhal? These,
Right.
according to me, are the problems as far as this particular provision is concerned.
Okay. Satyaprakash, let me bring you into the picture now. So, why is free speech becoming such a widely discussed and contentious issue? We've seen that it's gained a lot of traction of late.
I don't think so. Right after independence, when the constitution became operational, there was First Amendment in 1951, and there were several expressions added to the restriction clause, Article 19(2). So free speech has been troubling the establishment and those in power. There is an entire history to it. 1951, the First Amendment; 1963, the 16th Amendment, and thereafter, the attempts that were made through Section 66A of IT Act or 118D of the Kerala Police Act, which both these provisions were struck down by the Supreme Court in Shreya Singhal case. So free speech, there is a history to it, and it has been under attack from the establishment and certain people who wield some sort of influence. But of late, there is a larger picture which people are missing. I suppose instead of debating specific provisions, we should be debating this free speech has been under attack for various reasons, and there is a systemic failure in the sense that the entire issue of free speech and the regulation of media, that is, in a way, of late, what you pointed out is in the news because of the fact that there are some misuse, and then there is an attempt to check that. In the attempt, they are going overboard. And this is one such example where the state has gone overboard in checking this kind of misuse. There is no denying that social media and certain sections of the media, they are behaving in an irresponsible manner. But despite that, unless that behavior borders criminality, you cannot bring such act under various provisions of criminal law. If you try to criminalize certain behavior which you think it's hurting you in any manner, that will be end of free speech. Democracy requires certain degree of tolerance towards criticism, and to my understanding, this particular provision, not that the stated objective, I am saying that could be some of the reasons behind the bringing this law, but there are certain other aspects, because this government has been under attack for various corruption allegations and other allegations, and that is why I suppose there is some sort of motive behind it, and that motive has to be, people have realized that, and that is why this opposition to this. Second point, the larger issue of regulation of social media and certain other media, where the regulatory mechanism is rather absent, and people are taking undue advantage of that, and that is why there is too much noise on social media, and it lacks decency, and generally people are crossing the line, and the state doesn't know whether to check it and how to check it, because the moment the state, I'm talking about Indian state, not a specific state government or central government, the moment a state tries to do that, the bogey of emergency is raised, and then the state will be on the back foot. And this is what the Supreme Court has also raised in recent 2-3 cases, that
Right.
there is a need to regulate, but then how to regulate it, and whether to allow the industry to regulate itself, self-regulation, or the states would be providing some mechanism, and states would be part of the regulatory mechanism. That remains the real question.
Absolutely. All right. Since we are here then, Ranjit Mehra, let's talk about this aspect as well. Social media and how we've seen irresponsible behavior on social media. There are several people who cross the line, and it's quite nasty, on social media to see everything that's happening there. So how do you regulate that? How do you, bring some kind of normalcy there? It seems like a difficult task.
Yes, it is of course a difficult task because the reach with the social media has, and with the way in which it is being used, and the number of people which who use this is also like it is huge, and the paraphernalia which the state has or the courts have is too negligible in comparison to what is happening over the social media and the number of people who are using the social media. The victims, if you take the case of the victims alone, it would be huge, and there is no system in the magistrate courts to rather adjudicate all these matters in which the complaint comes in. And so far as the police is concerned, they would always consider this to be too trivial a matter for them to investigate and file a final report in the 60 days which they ought to file it, and thereafter prosecute this with a prosecutor, or rather having a complainants counsel and then prosecute. Is all trivial in nature. And see, all matters in which the defamation etc. comes into the court, you have read Nariman's book on this thing. Before the memory fades, he narrates an incident in which a person gives a defamation suit, and thereafter every day the defamation charge is being narrated in the court, and the person itself, the complainant itself, is getting harassed by the virtue of the fact that the statement is made to be uttered in the court every day. Therefore, this is the kind of defamation suits or the complaints that is being adjudicated in the courts. And you have to have, what you have to have is you have sufficient laws. In Kerala, you have the Kerala Police Act with a different, different kind of provisions which emphasizes situations in which they can be convicted. But the convictions have not happened so far. Why? Because there is no there is no prescribed limit by which the matter ends up, and you do not want the complainant to go to the court every day and then get its matter adjudicated. You have to have paraphernalia. You will have to have necessarily different kind of mechanisms or the courts which will have to adjudicate these matters within. See, these matters will not take much longer period. It is only the complainant. It is only the evidences which are all scientific in nature. Technical evidences will creep in. You can finish it off in maybe 10 days trial is sufficient enough for these cases to finished off. You will have chances by which these persons can be convicted and booked for the what they have done. If that comes in, and the message is sent to the society, probably people will become mature enough to have these platforms used in a specific manner.
Absolutely.
See, in countries, even defamation is not a culpable offense. It's all based on liability and tort. And therefore, they even adjudicate tortious liabilities within a given span of time, and huge amount is being given as compensation. That will not happen in India. You have to pay. If you want to contest a suit, you have to pay at least 10%. So far as Kerala is concerned, you have to pay 10% of the court fees, and then wait for another 5 to 10 years to get the matter adjudicated. Same is the case with all these complaints as well. And there will be difference of opinion between the persons who are available in the social media, and therefore nobody wants to take that chance as well. Therefore, that's the system has failed and not the provisions.
Okay, points taken.
Yes.
Points taken. All right. So taking the discussion forward now, since we're talking about crossing the line, Desai Deepak, how do you decide when person A's rights end and person B's rights begin, or vice versa?
See, fortunately here, the law is to some extent clear with respect to what is the Lakshman Rekha that one is supposed to observe, regardless of the medium. Just bear two things in mind, or perhaps the most important thing is, what is it about social media that distinguishes it from other forms of media is primarily its democratization of the ability to air one's views, which means the absence of editorial control over what comes out in the form of a user-generated content. Okay, so from being a certain medium which has a certain gateway where a filtration is applied by an editor before it reaches out to the public for dissemination, This happens to be a medium where people can simply air without any application of filters. It's entirely left to their own judgment. So that's the first thing. Coupled with the other point that Mr. Marar mentioned in terms of scale, reach, size, and all of that. But the primary issue is, of course, if there is no, let's say, editorial control and it's a free-for-all, the free-for-all activity, look at the multiple permutations and combinations possible given the number of social media users today, which makes it extremely difficult for anybody. Assume for a moment, even if you provide a legal mechanism, every person who happens to be touchy, if he decides to approach the court because he is aggrieved by let's say, a statement which he deems is offensive, frankly, then the court would have nothing else to do except for adjudicating these kind of matters. Therefore, the standard that has been applied in the Shreya Singhal judgment is typically of what is it that a reasonable person would assume, or what is it that how would he react to a particular statement that is being made? But most importantly, the statement's value or its ability to defame is not judged from the standpoint of the person who is the subject of that particular criticism. Because I will always be extremely touchy about statements being made about me because I'm attached to that particular identity. I'm attached to my identity. Therefore, you will have to put yourself in the shoes of a reasonable spectator of a conversation to ask yourself whether a statement that is being made, is it really problematic? Is it really defamatory? So on and so forth. Okay. So the test is you act as a witness to the conversation that you're party to. You don't put yourself in the shoes of the recipient itself, because the recipient is always bound to be a bit more touchy about the statements when he is the subject of that particular statement. Okay. So the standard is, where does it start? Does it have a tendency to lower his reputation when it comes to defamation? Second, is there a malice? Is there a certain history to that particular conversation? Is there a specific targeted approach there? And what is the intention? So two things you look at. One is the intent behind a particular statement. Two is the effect of that particular statement in lowering the reputation of that particular individual in the eyes of third parties. Okay, these are the broad two limbs. There are multiple nuances and layers to this argument, but these are the broad two limbs that guide the discourse on exercise of free speech by one party and the consumption of free speech by the other party, both being the terminals of this particular channel, so to speak. Okay, so you try and not apply the standard of someone who's extra sensitive. At the same time, you don't try and apply the standard of someone who has absolutely no problems at all and who's like a water on the duck's back, that he doesn't react to any statement at all. Okay, so it's somewhere in between. As always, the truth lies somewhere in between. The position lies somewhere in between. Okay, largely it's on a case-to-case basis. However, if there is a constant attack on one person by another person and there seems to be a certain undercurrent, that certainly plays a significant role in asking whether these statements are motivated by malice, whether your intent in bringing down this particular person's reputation. That always plays a role. But look at it today. Most public figures are exposed to all sorts of criticism on social media, and you would have never interacted with them on a one-to-one basis. You only have a problem with respect to their positions. Right. So in the absence of any undercurrent, how do you decide what is the threshold that is crossed? You look at it from the standpoint of reasonable civility. You look at it from the standpoint of statements. If it happens to be an allegation which has no basis and there is no support, then there is a serious problem. But if it's not an allegation, so to speak, but simply an opinion, I think somebody is an idiot, if that's the statement that I make, okay, that's not an allegation. That's a value-based opinion of someone. Then if you make those statements and you air it in, let's say, in public, then that statement has a defamatory quality, could be humiliating, could be a bit of an abuse, depends on how it is. But the court asks itself, does it really lead to defamation? Somebody calling someone a stupid and idiot doesn't lead to defamation unless and until it's an attack on character or something very, very personal. That's usually the contour of this particular discussion.
Right. Okay. Let's bring in another aspect also now into the picture. Satya Prakash, very quickly, as far as regulation is concerned, is there a worry, is there a scare that there could be over-regulation as well? And considering whatever has happened, in Kerala with regards to the, Police Act amendment, are we heading towards becoming a police state?
I think there is hardly any regulation of the social media in India. In fact, television media is also not regulated by the state. They are self-regulated. The only regulation that exists on the part of the government, that is Press Council of India, which regulates the print media and news agency journalism. There is hardly any regulation. And in India, there is always a gap between law and technology. Technology is developing very fast and law is trying to catch up with that, and they have miserably failed. And there is a huge gap, and this gap is creating a lot of problems. And this gap has been pointed out by Supreme Court. In fact, in 1995, in this judgment, Secretary Ministry of Information and Broadcasting versus Cricket Association of Bengal, the court, it was the Supreme Court which pointed out that there is a gap between law and technology and you need a law to regulate that. In that verdict, the Supreme Court had declared airwaves to be public property. And since then, the the law is trying to still catch up with that, and they have failed. And why? Because there is a policy paralysis on the part of the policymakers. I'm talking about both the legislature and the executive. And the executive, generally, they are on the back foot because the moment they try to step in and try to formulate some sort of regulation, the media industry will say they will raise the bogey of emergency, and that state, I'm saying the state should be kept away from the, but then the question is who will regulate and how. The industry cannot be left completely unregulated, and if you leave it unregulated, then in recent past we have come across certain comments made by certain people against CJI. And then the Attorney General, who has refused to give consent for prosecuting too many people for contempt of court, he was forced to give his consent in this particular case. So this is a serious issue, and how it can be built, and whether the state should be part of that regulatory mechanism or not, and to what extent. I'm saying even if you have self-regulatory mechanism for television industry or some other industry, even then, there has to be some statutory backing to that system, else nobody will follow that. So there is a question of regulatory mechanism, one, but then there are certain aspects which can be dealt with by law. There are certain others which have to be left for the industry to regulate through ethical, their own mechanisms. Because certain aspects of ethics cannot be regulated by law. So there has to be some scope for ethical conduct by those who are players in the industry.
Absolutely. All right, I've got 30 seconds left on the program. J. Sai Deepak, close the show for us with your quick concluding remark.
See, with every technology which tries to empower the individual, I think the envelope for exercise of free speech and expression is only going to be pushed further. Okay. And to a significant extent, law will have to try and catch up with this pushed envelope and this enhanced envelope, as Mr. Satyaprakash rightly points out. However, I'm just simply asking myself, what is it that ultimately we get caught up in, where every element which is meant to empower the individual's voice so that they are in a position to express, ultimately veers around a discussion which deals with defamation, humiliation, so on and so forth, which effectively means that these technologies somehow are either designed to, or there is an incentive to try and get the worst out of us in some way or the other. I'm not trying to be anti-technology here, but more or less these technologies end up having a certain impact where the increased freedom translates to a certain sense of adventurism, particularly in public, when we suddenly realize, oh, we seem to have the ability to take pot shots at everyone, and therefore let's make the best use of this particular opportunity. I'm not saying that, therefore, let's have an anti-technology approach. I'm saying that some of these answers may not entirely lie in the law. Some of these answers may lie in the heart of the society. And the society has to ask itself, what is the civility with which it wants to conduct itself, even in public fora? There is always the scope for disagreement. There's always a scope for criticism. But is it possible for us to, or is it not possible for us to remain civil? That's the only question.
Just one sentence that freedom comes with responsibility. So the moment we get freedom, we must be acting responsibly, else we'll end up giving a handle to the state to somehow clamp down on us.
Rajat Marar, okay, go ahead. One sentence. In one sentence.
So
final word on the program. Go ahead,
So far as freedom of speech is concerned, from the perspective of state, I would say it is not what you say decides the freedom of speech. How you are being dealt with after your speech or explanation, that depends how your freedom of speech is guaranteed by the state.
Okay. All right. On that note, then, I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.